Al, hello. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, rather.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'm so excited. I love this for us. I actually haven't recorded a podcast in like 7 weeks because I've been traveling, and I've been so excited about this episode because you know when you haven't done something for a real long time, so then the excitement builds up, and then because I already know you and we've like spoken before and I've kind of like got background on your company, I'm just like really excited about it.
That's amazing. Well, I'm excited to be here, and I feel that. I do feel like anticipation and we've been teasing each other for quite some time on this. So really good foreplay.
Yes, good foreplay. How are you? You recently had baby number 2. He is divine. How's it all going?
It's going really well. It's definitely a big workload. It's so much effort and to emotional labor and physical labor and labor. And it's also just so incredibly rewarding. I think of parenting as just as it's got like lots of high highs and lots of low lows. It's just like a lot. And having a second, it's for me, it's been so different. It's been rich in a very different way than the first.
Like what? What do you mean?
With my first, I felt just so immediately in love. And then with my second, in some ways, you bring your baby home and it's still so much about the older one, making sure that they feel okay and safe and what's their transition, what's their experience going to be like. And then you're like, wait, I'm still focused so much on this one. I want to make sure I'm focused and loving towards this, new child that's in my space. There's a lot more divide and conquer between you and your partner. The first time you have a kid, you're becoming a parent. You're going from like 2 to 3, which is this big dynamic shift. I was like so prepared to know that I was about to go through a transition in a way that I didn't appreciate as much for the second. Because I was like, oh, I'm already a mom. I'm just momming more.
I already have the blueprint.
Yes, exactly. Like I'm already doing it. But now I feel like I'm a real mother. And there was also just so many moments of transition within the family. Like I think there are some sad moments too, where I've just been like sitting there breastfeeding and watching my husband play with my daughter and feeling like a little bit separated from them because I'm a little bit more strapped to the baby. But this child is just so special. I'm just like loving watching him develop. I do feel like, even more room in my heart and so much love for him. But it feels like it took a little bit longer. It wasn't as I don't know. This time just felt like even more was happening. Just more.
So interesting. Wow. Gosh. Mums are the best. You're a superwoman. Have you gone back to work? Are you back at work?
Yeah, I'm working. So my parental leave policy, it's like for me personally, not like at the company, is I write up a little plan. And the beginning of my plan is always like, hey, I just want you guys to know, like, this plan is really reliant on like my soon to be child, my unborn kid. And they're not very it's hard to hold them accountable to the plan. Dates may change, not strong accountability in this project. And also giving myself space to change that plan because I never know how I'm going to feel or what's going to happen. But it's really helpful to provide clarity or the beginning of a plan to your team. And I told them I was going to stay out for 3 weeks fully. That's almost what I did. I definitely took 1 or 2 meetings during that time. And then after that, I came back 2 days a week. And I've been working 2 days a week, which for me has been really kind of overflowing. I'm working definitely more than 2 days a week, but also still very part-time and lightweight. Then I slowly kind of ramp it back up, and about 4 months in, I'm fully back. So in some ways I come back earlier and I start working earlier, but in some ways I give myself even more time to transition back into being full-time.
How do you feel about are you excited to be fully back at work?
Yes and no. I think taking a step back and reprioritizing my life around this newborn child for a second gives me some perspective and I want to go back full time, but I want to step in differently than where I was before. There are so many things that just moves like, they did not need me. So many meetings, so many things that just happen. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just so amazing to see that. It's such a great reminder. It's also a great reminder of maybe where the business could use my support more, or what I could be doing as an add-on, like additive to the business instead of just supporting operations. So like that's really exciting. So I'm excited to go back, but it's going to be different, and I'm excited about that.
Gosh, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, and I know I said that, I really, really want to try and stay high level and keep my stress down and keep my, work-life balance in check.
Definitely hard, but also probably amazing once you master it. Being super productive when you're at work and then being super mom when you're at home.
Definitely. I think that it's like also just giving myself the space to also for 1 week just be like fully invested in one or the other. I think balance can look different in different moments. Do you know what I mean? Like some days feel balanced, and then sometimes I look at the month and the month feels balanced, or sometimes it doesn't feel balanced at all. And then I need to like take a break and figure out how do I get back to a place of alignment. Like that's okay to feel unbalanced.
Absolutely is.
Yes, it happens all the time.
On and off the balance. I want to hear like what's been happening in the business, because I mean, I've spoken to you since we had you on the podcast the first time around, but I want to hear kind of the highlights and the lowlights since then. When you were on the show last, you had, from memory, you had just won the lawsuit against suing the New York subway to get your advertising campaign live, and it was live, I think, at the time. And that feels like literally so long ago, and it probably was. It was probably 2021, so it probably is such a long time ago. But I'm like, so much has happened since then. So like, give us the recap on the business. Where are things? What are some highlights and some lowlights? Tell us.
Since we last spoke, we launched in Sephora. We actually launched Sephora Australia too.
Yes, I saw you here. Great news.
That's pretty cool. You saw me there when I was there. Then this year we launched Target. We've also launched some new products. One highlight or two highlights would be Dip and our gummies. So Dip is a $35. It's a very affordable. We wanted to make like the best entry level vibe that we could. It's a classic, vibe classic. So it doesn't have as many bells and whistles and functionality, but that has been a really strong seller for us. It's a really great essential product.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you. We've had a hard time keeping it in stock, which is always like a good but also real product problem. And then we also launched into supplements, which has been amazing and so fascinating. Always been into herbs, and it's just been really cool to make a formula, to learn more about that process. And then of course, we did a third-party clinical study with our formula, and that was also really interesting learning. So we developed something that really helps with connection. So it's adaptogen based. It also has nootropics like L-theanine to help you kind of calm and stay connected. And then we also put some mucana in it, which is an L-dopa precursor. So it helps you make dopamine in your brain, which of course is like the pleasure reward. And that's kind of how we classically think of it. Though it is a little bit more, from my understanding, a neurotransmitter that's also about pleasure seeking and curiosity. That makes so much sense as to why it's been effective at helping people get more connected to their sexual desire.
So do you eat the gummy and you can kind of like feel a difference, or it's more like a supplement where you take it over a long period of time and it builds up into your system?
So it's mostly adaptogen based, which is the building. So adaptogens you want to take every day, and they have more and more of effect. But things like L-theanine, which is also in it, has a more of an immediate calming effect. A little bit of both, but it's really a daily supplement. You're really going to notice the impact by taking it daily.
And for you, was that always kind of like a vision that you had, or did you land on supplements because of some other light bulb moment? Like what led to supplements and this kind of new direction?
What has always been part is like we just wanted to help improve sex holistically. And we knew that was more than vibrators. We had some ideas, some things that are still in the works, but we had this Facebook group where we have a group called Dame Labs, which is a group of consumers and fans who talk about products, try products for us, are just like down to kind of passionate about the category. And there was a conversation. And then also, you know what else also was happening is people will sign up or show up who are new or going through something difficult. And somebody posted that they were struggling with their antidepressants and how it was impacting their libido. And people started talking about supplements and teas and things that they were ingesting to kind of balance it out. And I had a light bulb moment of like, oh, we can create a proprietary blend that is generally supportive in how we want to go about it. So we went about it from a really, not from just making something that is a complement to SSRIs, but helps generally reduce anxiety and promote connection. But yeah, it really kind of came from a conversation of customers that we were facilitating with customers.
Wow, that's amazing. And how long has it been in market?
It launched last summer, July 2022.
And what's the impact been? Like, I want to know the impact both like anecdotally through like customer impact, but then I want to also understand like in the business, what has the impact been?
Like clinically, the formula, 87% of people who were in our trial saw improvement in sexual desire, and for like 90% saw a reduction in anxiety and stress. So that was very cool. I remember like the lab was like surprised, which was very cool because it was really nerve-wracking to put all the effort in to make a formula and then go through a test like that and just like to find out if it's, showing positive signs. And then as far as the impact on the business, we have a product now that has a subscription model, and it's been really amazing to build that out and see the impact of, having something like that, having more consumable, have a higher retention rate. And I would say lastly too, actually just like impacting people in a different way too. Like the customer response has been really amazing. We definitely have people who love them and are super users, and it's been cool to impact people in that way.
And it all makes so much sense as well. Like if you're thinking about it like from a business objective of the LTV of a customer must be so much higher if they're an ongoing subscriber, but also in the sense of, building those super users and super fans who are like, really connected on multiple layers into the business or into the brand rather. So cool. I love that. My gosh.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it has been really cool. It's been really fun too for me because we always get to learn new manufacturing processes, but still continue to work with our customers around the same topic, all in service of the same mission.
I like what you said before. It's like you're taking more of the holistic approach now with your customer, which is really cool. I want to talk about the launch into Target and how Target happened, how Target came about. So I kind of want to get into a bit of a Target conversation to understand how your marketing changes when you launch into something like that and kind of what you've learned from launching with a huge retailer like that. So to start at the beginning, how did the Target thing come about, and how did it happen?
So we got the Target broker's email. We reached out to a broker. So Target, there's a lot of brokers that help you sell into Target. Very interesting because the broker, we didn't end up working with them, and they were kind of, it turned out, going through their own internal transitions, and they just kind of gave us the email and we're like, hey, they're just looking for line reviews. Here's the format, send it in. So I did that, and they had heard of the brand. Target had heard of the brand and was really excited to hear from us. I was pleasantly surprised. Target they were having in the news some challenges with inventory post-COVID. So I didn't think they'd actually be open to bringing in any new vendors. But of course, you shouldn't assume and you should just apply, and that's what I did. You should never assume, but I remember telling myself, like, this isn't going to be the year. And then they reached out and they knew who we were, and this category was performing really well, and they wanted to have the premier brand in this space because I didn't feel like they had that. So that was very cool, and they wanted to put us in about 290 stores, a different assortment. And I do think, like, if you are ever thinking about going into Target, I think it's really important to do your research, know what price points sell and how you want to push on that, but be realistic about how much you can push, and then believe in yourself. Because when it came to the assortment that we put in the store, some of those were really what Target wanted, and some of those items I was like, no, I'm telling you guys, I think that this is the product that's going to sell more. And I'm really happy that I also pushed for some, there was a party that was like, oh, the Target buyers, like, of course they know better than me. But I was also like, I'm positive that, this product is going to do well there. And I pushed for it and it does well there. I think that it's a good reminder too that, like, how do you want to position yourself in one of these stores? Are you trying to, who do you want to be in that store?
Trust your intuition and your gut. Like, your brand better than anyone else. You know what resonates with a customer.
And your category too, because these category managers, it's a lot. It's not just, she does all personal, she does a lot of personal care and sexual wellness and all the different categories within the categories that she, there's a lot. It's always good to remember that you're an expert.
100%. That's a key learning, I think. Okay, so they have sent a PO, like, you're launching, it's official, contracts are signed. What is the next step for a company like yours when it comes to the marketing and assembling a team that are going to be supporting the Target kind of launch and ongoing kind of Target efforts to make sure that you've got high velocity, to make sure that people know you're in Target? What happens there? Like, what does that look like?
There's so many ways you can go about it. There's everything from, like, running advertisements on Target's platform for Target's e-commerce business, just like you can run ads on Google or Amazon. Like, that's a whole system, and that's an effort. I think you almost I believe we have to work with a broker in order to work with Target. Broker is an agency that kind of works as a in-between. And I think it's really important to make sure you get a broker that you love, that you trust, that is going to support you. Make sure they're getting on the call, give you the right data when you need it.
And so do you still work with a broker now? Is that what you're saying? Like, it's an ongoing relationship. So what do they do? What does the broker, do ongoing?
So they do a few things for you. There's a lot of nuance and, even just getting an order process from Target, it can be kind of like a heavy lift. They use EDI, so you have to have, they use a lot of logistics. There's making sure that the POs make sense. I've had a few purchase orders where we're like, this is way too high. There's apps or way too low, or hey, they'll help us look at what's moving in their back end system at Target, and we'll be like, this is weird that they're ordering so much of this and so much of that, and then they'll go back to Target and kind of ask questions, and often we get them fixed because we don't want Target to have too much of our inventory. We want them to have the right amount, so we're seeing that momentum. We don't want them to be overstocked of our product.
And what have you found shifts the needle to keep the momentum going? I've seen a lot of people who work kind of with the TikTok Target influencers who go in and review products on shelf and things like that. Or is it just your classic paid ads linking to Target? Or is it in-store activation? Or what have you been working on?
The taboo of the category does restrict us in what kind of in-store marketing or just marketing that we can do. Both in-store as well as out of stores for the brand in general. But I do really think that general awareness is key. When people go into Target, it's not as much of a place that you go to learn. You kind of want to know the brand before you get there in some way, or maybe you learn about the brand there, and the awareness gets to you, but there's not as much education in store there as compared to some other retailers that we're in. So I think the brand awareness, I think working with influencers who are, target focused, anything like that can be so helpful, figuring out a way of using the internet to get in front of an audience that goes to target.
100%. I've seen a lot of that actually. Do you think, like, considering, you're such a well-established brand, and I know Target also takes in a lot of kind of like indie brands as well and like kind of earlier stage brands, when do you think is the good time to approach Target? Like, if there's a founder listening who's like, my dream is to go into Target, like, what would you give advice on that?
Target and, other big FTM, you really want to make sure that you're going to be able to support them. And what that means is have the inventory, be able to plan for that inventory, be able to have the margins to support that partner too. So it's a profitable undertaking, or if you know it's not going to be profitable at first, that's a calculated decision. And have a go-to-market strategy, as well as sustaining marketing dollars for it. It can be anything, like it could be your only store and you can focus all of your attention on it. And if it's not, you just have to make sure you have the right team. Like I'm just saying, resources, because it can be an effort, and they'll, charge you if you don't fulfill the PO on time. There's a lot of things that can be hard to do. So you want to make sure you're ready. You want to make sure you feel like it's a good brand fit. Make sure your warehouse is capable of fulfilling EDI orders and being compliant with their systems. It's just...
How many stores are you in, like all retailers combined?
I don't know. We actually just did a count recently. So we sell through distributors too. And so for example, in Australia, we have an amazing, amazing partner who sells a lot of our product into the adult market, as well as some like spas and, premium wellness spaces. So I don't know all of her store counts. I don't know exactly how many stores we're in Australia. Probably more, probably like 600 to 1,000 stores. We're in 300 Targets. And then we're in quite a bit of adult stores as well. Then we've done like pop-up shops in Nordstrom's, we've worked with Bloomingdale's. So there are a lot of other online retailers like Revolve. All of them sell our product. So that's...
And is your kind of like focus now like more retailers? Like, is that the expansion plan, or is it like still focusing online? Like, where is the growth from here?
We've always been omni-channel, and that has been really supportive because there's so many restrictions when it comes to digitally advertising this category. I never felt like the classic 2014 digital native vertical, I don't remember if digital native vertical brand, that's something like that. Like that, I didn't feel like that strategy was fully available to us. And when retailers came knocking, it just made sense. Like the cash flow of that channel seemed worth figuring out how to support them. So, we said yes to a few stores. Like I remember, Babeland, which is to me, it's like the cool New York sex toy store that I grew up going to, called us. I was like, we're going to figure that out. And we started selling to wholesale pretty quickly. I think that it always makes sense to focus first on your digital presence and your website. It's just how you can have the most direct relationship with your customer. So I kind of feel like if I can do things that succeed there and focus on building the brand there, that's going to support my sales everywhere. So that's always been the strategy. And I feel, I don't know if luck is the right word, because now the world has changed, and it's really... I think all of these consumer brands that have come about in the past 10 years are all realizing that they can't build their business only online. And there's been a big shift to figuring out how to make wholesale work. And since we had wanted to make sure that channel was available to us from the beginning, it's a profitable part of our business. It is definitely a bigger percentage of our revenue this year than it was last year of retail. And it's one of the channels I want to keep on growing. But I do see us growing digitally as well and continuing to do it through partnerships and other things. I really want to do more pop-up stores. I love retail. I love in-person.
I think in-person is just so much fun. Activations are fun. Also meeting people in real life.
We're a brand about intimacy and pleasure, and I'm both obsessed with how do we create that online. And I think we can. Like, you and I have become friends halfway around the world. And that's like really beautiful. And it's really cool how we can do it in new, different ways. But there's something about the old school IRL that I really want to honor. And I don't know, it feels really almost important to the brand to like have intimate spaces.
100%. I love that. More offline, more connection, more intimacy. Love it. Something I wanted to ask you actually, I think the last time we spoke, you had a co-founder at the time. Her name was Janet. I don't think she's in the business anymore. Is she still in the business? What's going on there?
Working day-to-day in the business since 2020. So I actually think even last time we spoke.
Maybe she wasn't involved.
Yeah, I don't think she was, based on the timeline. We started the business together. Then at one point, actually it was right before COVID, she just kind of hit a place where she wanted to take a step back and she wanted to kind of shift her priorities. And I just feel really grateful and proud of the grace for which we like figured that out, because it was really hard. You know, it's just like a marriage, and her reasonings were, I really wanted to, respect her and figure out a way for that to be sustainable for me moving forward without her. And she was, it was hard. There was definitely like very challenging conversations that we had to have, and we had to, write up docs to figure out like what all of that was going to look like. And it can destroy businesses, and it has. And I feel like it certainly did not destroy ours. I still feel very, very much like, her energy and spirit is still very much at Dame. She's since started a family and, checks in every now and then. And yeah, I don't know. It is really nice.
I think there is some stat out there that like, a lot of businesses fail because of the breakdown of co-founder relationships, because of course, like building a business is stressful, managing relationships is stressful. When you are having to figure out what it looks like for a co-founder to leave a business, is it like you buying her out of the company, or is it like she's still got equity and she's just not an operator anymore? Or you have to figure that out with a lawyer?
You have to figure that out with each other first and foremost, and lawyers. But like, I think kind of with each other as much as you can first, just to kind of it keeps costs down. We had a consultant who was like, I think you guys should work with a mediator who is not a lawyer, just to help you figure this out. And that was really helpful. So this way, like when we were like, hey, this is really important to me, we had, a safe space to have those conversations and put pen to paper, because it's hard, she and I had built this really powerful thing together that both of our net worth was tied up in. Like there's no right way of doing it. I would say the wrong ways where you both end up with nothing by destroying the business. And that's not what either one of us want to do. I don't think either one of us was bitter. I think we understood that it was time. Yeah, I don't know. I like the more I look back on that, the more I'm just like so proud. Seems like so many relationships can get so ugly in that moment. And it's just a lot like a divorce. And you just have to remember that ultimately, like you both have equity in this thing. So what's going to support that? What are you looking for? Like I know she really wanted more just ease and stability in her life, and that's hard to get as an entrepreneur. So how can we also kind of construct that for her? If it was going to be me without her, I wanted to also make sure I was seeing more, upside. So those were the things we negotiated and were able to come to terms and figure it out.
It's so interesting. I love this tip about getting a mediator involved versus like getting the lawyers to manage it, because of course it is so personal, and there are these kind of things that are important to you that it needs to be approached more with emotion versus legality at the beginning.
And yeah, a little bit of both. I feel like you don't want to necessarily, I always struggle with this because I feel like emotion is so important. You don't want to be emotional and defensive during conversations, but you need to like acknowledge your emotion in order to have a logical and grounded conversation. And you have to know your needs and your desires so you can know if they're being met or not. And in our case, we both had to be willing to compromise a little bit.
When you think about like the last couple of years, you've gone through that, like a co-founder situation changing, then you've had, crazy success with launching into hundreds of, new retailers and stores. I'm sure you've probably had like different low moments as well. What are the kind of what's the key kind of learnings that you could pass on to someone listening right now that kind of like sums up the last few years? I feel like that's such a big question, but I feel like you've gone through a lot in the last couple of years, and it's like, what advice or learnings could you share?
Also, COVID happened in the past few years, which was all just so much. So many highs, so many lows. I've been thinking a lot about stability and how much, I'm trying to create stability through the business, both for myself and for my employees. But I don't, entrepreneurship is, you feel the instability more, you can see it. Like, okay, there's going to be high, like there's target might be around the corner, but you also at the same time might be having a supply demand logistics, fire to put out. And I think just really hard to manage all of it and to see your success. I've definitely had moments where I stopped seeing my success or stopped seeing myself as successful because I'm more focused on inventory challenges. I don't know, things internal or things that are happening, or if everything's going well enough, then, oh my God, I'm in Target. I have a brand that's in Target. That's amazing.
It's amazing. Like the dream.
But then you get so obsessed with are you doing good enough in Target? You were asking me what do we need to be, what do you think brands need to do to be successful in Target? And I was having such a hard time, not immediately slacking my team, being oh my God, I have this other idea. What if we, we should be doing more, versus just, hey, dude, I'm in Target. That's amazing. It's so cool. So I don't know. I think the advice is just to stay grounded and to just take deep breaths before making big decisions, and always try and have alignment. It should feel good. Not that it's not hard, but nobody's mental health is really worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You had somebody on the show recently who was somebody, I forget who it was. They were super successful, and then they it takes a toll on your mental health, or it can. So you just, I had somebody be remember, nothing's worth your mental health. And I was just nothing is worth my mental health.
100%. 100%. Mental health is hard though. We talk about it all the time. Everyone talks about it. But it's pretty tricky to get to the point where you're my mental health is great. Overall, big picture.
I feel pretty good right now. I was feeling real shitty though for a while. I just had a kid. It was tough. It was hard. And it's hard to know what to do when it's hard, I wanted to be good. I want to be positive. I really think that if I put positivity out there, more positivity is going to come my way. I believe in all of that. And then it's I'm hit with a moment where I'm oh man, I just feel funky. I feel sad. I feel unsure of who I am and what my light is. And that's okay. I think we're just always going to have moments of that. You go through these cycles, and just allowing for it is just hard.
Yeah. And I also think my husband told me something recently that either he heard or he read or, whatever, but the goal of course, like you want to be happy all the time and things like that, but that's just not how it works. And so it's just about like being in the season that you're in, even in a day. Like, you can have many seasons in a day, and that's okay. And it shouldn't be this pressure that you have to be happy 100% of the time, because we're emotional beings. There are ups and downs, and that's just the way that it is. And like acknowledging that is fine.
Yeah, I think like, the point isn't to not suffer at all. It's to, I don't know, be at peace with those moments. And like, it's totally fine to realize, like, to acknowledge, like, oh, I'm in a transitional place. Like, I'm in a place right now. Just trying to always have also faith that you're going to find that footing again.
100%. I want to wrap up this episode with our 6 quick questions that we put into part 2. They might have changed since the first time you did these.
I'm so curious.
Question number 1. What is your why? Why are you waking up every day and working on this business?
I wake up every day and work on my business so much for my employees, to make a great place for them to work. Feels really important these days. And then also to make vibrators that are just like no big deal, because vibrators are no big deal. And to own like pleasure for women without having to pretend it's something else.
Amen. Love that. Question number 2. What's been your favorite marketing moment recently?
Yeah, okay, we did a campaign where we made dildos that looked like Mitch McConnell to raise some money for abortion funds in the U.S. And I really thought that was great. Just for us, like, it was something that's really dear to my heart. Before I started the business, I wanted to be a sex therapist. I worked in Planned Parenthood and provided counseling there. It's a really tricky topic to discuss, but I feel really in my bones that if we want people with vulvas to have pleasure, they should totally be able to control the consequences. And this is key to the success of like what I want Dame to change in the world. So on the one hand, it's like, I don't want to we don't want to always be so political, but this feels so important and critical to our mission. I think we had a lot of fun with it and are always trying to use humor to bring attention to things. And we raised a ton of money for abortion funds.
That's amazing. That's seriously amazing. Congratulations. I love that. Everyone should go check it out. It's on your Instagram. Question number 3. What's a go-to resource for you at the moment? Book, podcast, or newsletter?
So ones that I'm like seeing right now, because they're like bookmarked, I still use, this one's not new, but like Hyper Island tool. I love this tool.
What's it called? Hyper Island tool?
Yeah. It's like this website somebody sent me a long time ago, and it has like different like energizers or meeting activities that you can do with your team, like brainstorming activities or, and I think in a remote world that's like super helpful. I also love this like random question generator that helps me do intro questions at the beginning of meetings. So those are fun things.
What's that one called? I'm going to link these in the show notes.
Oh my gosh. I have to check my Asana task of intro question. I don't remember what it's called.
Okay. You can send it to me. You can send it to me another time. I love that. So cool. Thanks. I haven't heard of either of those, so love that. Question number 4 is, how are you winning the day at the moment?
I got work done today. I did things for myself today, and I got to be with my family today. So those are some wins.
Many wins. Love that. Question number 5. What is the worst money mistake you've made in the business, and how much did it cost you?
Hardware is expensive. So sometimes if we don't design something correctly and have to rework it, like the first run, you'll make something and you prototype it, it works, and then you make 5,000 of them. And then maybe you find out like the pin and manufacturing didn't line up with the port. So like I remember like with Finn years ago, we had to like replace a bunch of ports. So like those things can be really expensive, but that happens in manufacturing. It's hard to make
that mass produce something. But those can be expensive. I mean, a really early one that now I feel like is so silly. I remember when we first started manufacturing, we found our manufacturer through a US manufacturer who did circuit boards. And in order to kind of get our whole system aligned, we made the circuit boards in the US and then sent the circuit boards to China. And the import tax on circuit boards was like so expensive on top of US made circuit boards, which were also much more expensive than we make them now. And I'm like, oh, we should have never done that. That was so dumb. But you're learning.
You're learning. Always learning. Ups and downs.
And we got it done, you know what I mean? Like we made a product pretty quickly. So even though we could have done it better, we could have done it cheaper, that was expensive. We made a product in 9 months.
Pretty impressive. Very impressive. Last question. Question number 6. What is just a crazy story, good or bad, from building Dame?
First started Dame, I remember going to my grandma's country club and I saw all of her friends were sitting at a big card table and I was just starting out Dame and they were like, I'm from a very Jewish world. So they're like, oh, hello, Alexandra. Like, what are you working on? Like, what are you doing these days? And I was like, okay, I'm going to tell them. And I was like, I am making a vibrator and started, starting a sex toy company. And it was like dead silence. And then one of them, which happens to be my cousin's grandma, this is coming to mind because she recently passed last week. That's okay. So I'll remember she was like, I'll buy one. And then all the other like old ladies were like, okay, yeah, we're going to support you. And then they were very supportive. And I just remember thinking that was really funny. The returning customers, and it was a very, really supportive and nice thing that this woman who just recently passed did for me.
Shout out to her.
Yeah, shout out to her.
That is crazy. I love that.
I'm sure there are crazier ones. I feel like there's definitely been some really silly moments in my life where I'm just like, oh my God, like going through TSA. I've definitely had like 10 vibrators. I have a few of those stories.
We'll need the book. We'll need the part 3. The vibe stories. Love the vibe. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I have loved chatting to you as always. Appreciate you. Appreciate what you're building in the world. And I can't wait to see you in person again.
Thanks. Thank you. Was it good?
It was so good. So many good learnings.
Just remember, like, Dune's forever on my name list. It is such a good one. All right.